The month that was, the month of November, where we saw some crises deepen and other teams rise from the mud. Hello, Bournemouth. Am I right? Are we all up the cherries in the chat right now or what? What's up, you guys? I'm Adrian and welcome to Costco, but also just the third edition of the monthly recap. Happy to have you, all of you early adopters of this series. Now, I gotta say from the beginning that the tables and stats in this video will include some matches from this past weekend, aka the first weekend of December. But these, of course, are just to see where everyone is at and give you the update on how things stand in the various countries anyway. Not show who won the month, but I will, of course, speak of teams and players from within that month throughout the video, so you'll get the updates through that medium. On top of that, our Player of the Month award, the most coveted award in the world, will also be given out in this video. Bayer Leverkusen are still Bayer never losing, as their dominance in Germany, and that extends into the Europa League as well, continues, as they have not lost a match yet this season. In fact, Leverkusen have only dropped points on one occasion when they played away to Bayern in September and drew 2-2. Even when it looked like they could slip up against Sandhausen in the Pokal, but late goals from Rosek and Adli lifted it from 2-2 to 5-2 Leverkusen. In their next match, a Bundesliga trip to Hoffenheim, it was close once again. After going 2-0 up, Hoffenheim scored twice in 2 minutes, but once again, Alex Grimaldo won it. Since then, they didn't concede a single goal across all competitions, as they are absolutely flying. Grimaldo, by the way, the left back, had an incredible month, scoring 4 goals and assisting once. He also got back into the Spanish national team, so shout out Alex. We miss you at Benfica. Leverkusen were able to extend their winning streak to 14 consecutive matches in November, which is quite the feat, and remained one of 2 unbeaten teams in Europe alongside Nice. But after this weekend, no spoilers. Bayern Munich also had a pretty impeccable Wait, I remember you. As I alluded to in the previous monthly recap, Bayern lost to Saarbrücken 2-1 in the Pokal, a team that plays in Germany's third tier. The third tier, man! The magic of the cup, the magic of the Pokal. That caused plenty of extra scrutiny on Thomas Tuchel, of course, and he took that personally. Honestly, the way he dealt with Didi Hamann and the other journalists live on TV was pretty funny to watch. You could tell he was livid with what the pundits were saying about them. And so, yeah, it was a little bit childish, but hey, man, everyone has their limits. And for us, it was entertaining. Following that loss in the Pokal, however, they won every single match in Germany, including smashing Borussia Dortmund 4-0 away to Dortmund, by the way. Then they defeated Heidenheim and Köln. That Köln match, considering how poor Köln have been this season, was far closer on the scoreline than perhaps it should have been. That said, Kane has continued to shine in the Bundesliga, as anyone could have guessed as soon as he went there, right? But I do see some people with a bit of a surprise sort of, well, I knew he was good, but I didn't know that he was that good, now that he's been taken out of the Spurs context and surrounded by highly talented players. The fact that he still stands out amongst highly talented players is a testament to his quality. He scored 6 goals in Germany in November, including that hat-trick against Borussia Dortmund, and also had a brace in the Champions League. Speaking of Borussia Dortmund, they had a checkered month. Their home form, well, beyond that Bayern drubbing, like I said, it's an auto loss for them, is great. However, after they opened their month in the Bundesliga with that big loss against Bayern, they followed it up with a 2-1 loss to VfB Stuttgart. Sergio Guirassy with the late winner from the spot to sink Dortmund. Luckily, they got over that with a 4-2 win over Gladbach. So overall, 2 losses and a win in the Bundesliga, as well as a win in the Pokal. Mixed, very mixed. Their performances outside of the Bundesliga, outside of Germany, have been quite impressive. However, we won't get into them here, of course, but Dortmund, when playing in the Champions League, have been great defensively, especially. Speaking of which, let's check in with VfB Stuttgart. They have been fantastic still. They lost to Heidenheim, of all sides, at the beginning of the month. 2-0 there. Shouldn't have lost that one, but they won every other match. The win away to Eintracht Frankfurt was impressive. A brace from Dennis Undav, who has picked up the scoring while Guirassy has cooled off a bit. That was always going to be the case with Guirassy. His form was kind of unsustainable, wasn't it? But still, 2 goals in 3 matches is still great. Undav scored 4 goals in November to Guirassy's 2, adding to his 9 that he scored this season. Undav, that is. RB Leipzig's form has really taken a hit in the past month. They're still up near the top 3, but they lost a few points on Stuttgart this month with 2 wins and 2 losses in the Bundesliga. Adding to their poor month was a loss to Wolfsburg in the Pokal, so the holders are out. They've been absolutely leaking goals recently, especially when you count the Champions League as well. I know we mostly focus on domestic competitions here, but to give you the full picture of their struggles, 10 conceded, 10 scored in November. However, we have seen the rise of Los Openda at Leipzig, as this man has officially arrived since joining from RC Lens this past summer. 5 goals this month. He has 10 goals in 13 Bundesliga appearances, 14 goals in total. Now, the tables, and just a reminder, these do include the first matches of December, so keep that in mind, but Leverkusen still lead the Bundesliga, just a 3-point lead over Bayern. Then we have Stuttgart, Leipzig, and Borussia Dortmund before there's a 5-point gap between them and the rest of the chasing pack. Harry Kane has officially overtaken Sergio Guirassy in the Torjägerkanon race with 18 goals to Guirassy's 16. Guirassy has made 11 appearances, 2 as a sub, while Kane has 12 appearances. Also, wanted to give a shout out to Jonas Wind with 9 goals for Wolfsburg. Why? Because he has scored 50% of their Bundesliga goals, which is quite the stat. As for assists, Xavi Simons still leads there, but Leroy Sané was the biggest climber with 4 Bundesliga assists in November to Simons' single assist. The race is on there, and you can't count Kane out on the assist front either. Man might top both goals and assists in this team. And quick look at the clean sheets, and you'll see that we have a 3-way tie, but with some familiar names in there. Welcome to Alex Nubel, who is now on 5 clean sheets. It was another great month for Michel and Girona, wasn't it? Another undefeated month for them, though they did drop points against Athletic Club at the end of the month. Girona have really pushed Real Madrid all the way this season so far, going stride for stride with them. Well, except for when they faced each other and Real taught them a lesson. But in November, however, they continued their great form with 2 wins and a draw in La Liga, as well as a Copa del Rey victory over San Roque, as you would expect them to do. And they've been a great watch. Miguel Herrera, Alex Garcia, Savio or Savinho has been absolutely incredible. Artem Dovbyk is one of the best value signings of the season as well. He cost Girona just 7.7 million from Dnipro and has 7 goals and 5 assists in La Liga, 8 goals and 6 assists across all competitions. Not bad from the Ukrainian. Now Atletico, not many matches played in La Liga in November in general, with the lengthy international break, 2 Champions League fixtures, and then Copa del Rey on top of it all. In Atleti's 3 matches in La Liga, they had 2 wins over Villarreal and Mallorca, as well as a loss to Las Palmas. Yes, Las Palmas are actually playing some decent football this season. Griezmann continues to be the talisman of Atleti. He's the embodiment of what Simeone wants in his attacking players, creativity and work ethic going forward, as well as in defense, as you're just as likely to find Griezmann finishing off an attacking pattern or playing a final ball. 4 goals and an assist across all competitions this month, by the way. But you're just as likely to find him clearing away a cutback in his own box. Morata has also been a top performer for Atleti this season, but his form has cooled since the end of October/beginning of November. He started well, but the player I've enjoyed watching in their attack when given opportunities has been Samuel Lino. Great wing play. He's fun. Also seeing guys like Riquelme and Barrios, part of the new generation, get some playing time. It's great stuff from Atleti, who, as Morata said recently, there's something different in the air at the club this season. Perhaps it's just that they no longer have to deal with the drama between João Felix and Simeone. No more awkward tension all the time. That could be it. But speaking of João Felix, he and Barcelona saw their form hit a bit of a snag this month, as matches were far more laborious to watch. No free-flowing, high-scoring football from Xavi's fellas. Results-wise, they had 3 wins, a draw, and a loss across all competitions. One of those losses was in the Champions League to Shakhtar, as Barca's injury hit campaign has been a difficult one lately. They are getting some of those players back though. Every win has been by a single goal, and domestically they won twice in La Liga and drew once. Lewandowski scored a brace against Alaves, but has since been replaced by a very convincing looking replicant or synth that is far worse at football than the real Lewandowski. The Institute must be stopped. Sorry, I have followed on the brain since seeing that trailer for the TV series. As a fan of those games, I'm very excited. But let's get back to Barca. So Lewandowski becoming a much more limited striker as he ages is hurting Barca's attack for sure. The way that he's currently playing makes him basically just a fox in the box to finish off attacking plays. He's not running in behind or pressing much. And with Barca's lacking in creative outlets at the moment, it made for a November that felt grindy. Before the 2022 World Cup, he was killing it. Superb start to his Barca career, but since then he's been a shadow of himself. 23 goals in 43 matches isn't bad at all for your average striker, but Robert Lewandowski was much more than an average striker, wasn't he? The biggest bummer for Barca's month, however, is undoubtedly that Gavi is out for the season with a torn ACL. But yes, as alluded to, their presence in the final third is lacking and they've suffered from it. Perhaps the two Portuguese Johns can continue to find goals for them, while their situation in defense is interesting as well. Araujo being played as a right back for most of November so that Koundé could play in the center and Xavi could accommodate the Frenchman. But there was a recent change there, and for the better. But that was in December, so we won't talk about it. Real Betis is worth mentioning as well, as they are on a 10-match unbeaten run in La Liga. They've climbed the table well to make up for their poor start to the season, as they now haven't lost a match in Spain since mid-September, a 5-0 loss to Barcelona. The two Basque clubs are thriving again, as Athletic Club have climbed up to 5th with their great performances of late. Shout out to the Williams brothers. They're undefeated in November with 4 wins and a draw in La Liga and the Copa del Rey. They had 2 very entertaining matches in a 3-2 win over Villarreal and then a 4-3 win over Celta Vigo, the latter seeing them come back twice before getting the winner in the 97th minute. Incredible scenes. Real Sociedad lost to Barcelona at home to start the month off. Bit surprised by that one considering how good they have been otherwise. In the Champions League, they have been fantastic. They are yet to lose there and are through. Domestically in November, 3 wins, a draw, and a loss. And Real Madrid is playing much better these days. Last month, we talked about how they were getting results, but with some of the injuries they were carrying and stuff, it felt as though they were far too reliant on Jude Bellingham and that they were capable of much more. In fact, I even said, if Jude stops scoring, then what? Who's going to step up? And at that time, he was constantly saving them. Well, Jude is still scoring, but Rodrigo has stepped up in a massive way in November as he quickly became their top performer for the month across all competitions. He scored in every match but one. 7 goals and 4 assists across all competitions in just 5 matches, while in Spain alone, 5 goals and 3 assists in 3 appearances. That's 8 goal contributions. It's just nuts, man. People were getting on him at the beginning of the season, but that's just a case of knee-jerkism. Guy is good. Real's November was close to impeccable. If not for that draw against Real Vallecano at the beginning of the month, they would have won every match. But still, 5-1 over Valencia, 3-0 versus Cadiz, and 2-0 versus Granada. Not the most difficult of opponents, but that doesn't mean much, does it? How many times do we see top teams losing to bottom half of the table sides? All the time. And since we're here talking about stats, etc., let's look at the table. With their 1 slip up this month, a draw, Girona is tied on points with Real Madrid now. Surprisingly, they've outscored them. And Barcelona are 4 points back. Considering how they haven't been at their best, that's not too bad of a gap for them. Atleti have had better form, but with 2 losses in their previous 4 matches, they're now 7 points off the top with Athletic Club right behind them in touching distance. At the bottom, bad from Celta Vigo in their centenary year as well. Even with Rafael Benitez as the manager, they simply aren't winning La Liga matches. Almeria is horrible, though they managed a draw with Betis recently, which was a shock, honestly. And Granada, same deal there. Also, check out Sevilla, another poor season from them, man. Simply cannot win matches either with all of those draws in there. Top scorer, still Jude, though Antoine Griezmann is closing that gap. He now has 9 goals to Jude's 11. Saúl Ñíguez didn't get a single assist this month. He hasn't had one since October 1st, actually, but he still sits up at the top. But look at this. Everybody has 5 assists. Me, you, everyone has 5 assists. And clean sheets, the same customers as last month with Unai Simon, Ter Stegen, and Stol Dimitrievski leading the way. Now, I saw some quotes from Allegri at the end of October where he was saying that he likes his workman-like Juventus at the moment, his blue-collar Juventus. They aren't flashy, they don't score in heaps, but they are winning games and are firmly in the title race at the moment. I mean, they've scored 11 fewer goals than Inter, but are still just 2 points behind them. And if you look at their form over the last 6 matches, it's identical, with 5 wins and a draw each. After the season they had last year, which to be fair, the latter half of it was an improvement, Juve needed a season to just play domestic football and focus on finding themselves once again, get rid of all the noise surrounding the club. Additional time in the training ground has helped them greatly. Say what you will about Allegri's tactics and whether he will still elevate the team to another level, but right now, they're getting results, which is the most important thing. They're playing results football. In November, they played just 3 matches, which is wild to think of when speaking about one of the bigger teams in Europe, but they went undefeated. They beat Fiorentina away 1-0. They also beat Cagliari 2-1 at home, then drew Inter 1-1. Again, grindy and not exactly impressive from them, but the results that they need. The one thing I will say is that I'm nervous for them. I mean, as nervous as a neutral can be. I'm nervous of them in that it feels like they're right on the precipice right now, and they're just getting the wins. It feels like they're just a little bit away from negative results, but that's something to worry about if they ever get to that bridge. That's something to cross once they get to that bridge. Yes. And since we've mentioned Inter so many times, let's get them out of the way now. Nothing's really changed for them since last month as far as performances and results. They opened the month with a win away to Atalanta, then a routine victory over Frosinone, and the draw with Juventus. Lautaro has cooled a bit, but he scored important goals against Atalanta and Juve this month, while Thuram cooled off as well, but assisted Lautaro for that goal against Juve. They're still the strongest side in Serie A, in my opinion, and their most recent match, which we won't go into yet, proved that further. Çalhanoğlu, what a hit. What a hit. Napoli. They sacked Rudy Garcia over the international break this month, never should have had the job to begin with, in my opinion, and replaced him with Walter Mazzarri, this man.
I choose this club because I like as Islam.
Now, of course, that was when he was with Watford, and credit to him for giving it a go in English, but that soundbite has been stuck in my head for a few days now, and it will not relent, and maybe it'll be stuck in your head too. Anyway, what has he done on the pitch? Well, his first match was a win away to Atalanta. Again, that's a fantastic result for your first match, and he did not switch to his favorite back three. He kept it as is in the 4-3-3 that De Laurentiis said he wanted. His second match away to Real Madrid, so low expectations. He has played another match, but that was a December disaster, so hey, we'll see what we get with Mazzarri. Too early to tell, and he was unlucky to play both Inter and Real in his first three matches, but it won't get easier. Next, he goes away to Juve, then plays Braga in an important match at the Maradona. AC Milan are a hospital team. They are in such a dire state with the injuries at the moment that their team bus is basically an ambulance. But all of that being said, even in fielding players who are on crutches at the moment, but even in considering that, they are at least trending in the right direction right now. They started out November with a loss at home against Udinese. Not great, considering how Udinese have been in some relegation candidacy form this season. They then drew Lecce, who started strong but fell off big time. Then they followed that up with 1-0 over Fiorentina. Speaking of teams that started well but fell off big time, Fiorentina is one of them. They sit in 6th, yes. They had such a hot start that saw them climb as high as 4th in the first 8 matches, but recently they've collected L's. From matches 9 through 14, they have 2 wins and 4 losses. If you were to make a table just using the previous 6 matches, they would be in 15th in the league, just to give you an idea of how bad they have been. AS Roma, on the other hand, are second, well, third, I guess, only to the top 2 of Juventus and Inter when you look at their recent form. They went undefeated in Serie A in November with 2 wins against Lecce and Udinese and a draw with their rivals Lazio. Dybala and Lukaku are in great form for them, and just in general, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Mourinho and Roma. Because I had always said that I wanted to see Mourinho go back to a club that doesn't have an insane budget, and I want to see him get back into the trenches and just manage in the truest sense of the word. This past summer, they spent 9.3 million euros on transfers, many of them being to loan fees with the potential to make them permanent signings. And hey, they're doing well. So it's safe to say that he is back in the trenches, and that addition of Lukaku has helped greatly to round out the squad and give them some potency up front while Tammy Abraham is out with an injury. I mean, he wasn't in great form last season anyways, Abraham, so a signing was needed in that position, a leader in that position, and Lukaku has been great for the club. Say what you will about the guy, he brings a lot of great qualities. I want to give some love to Bologna as well before we move on to the standings. Thiago Motta has done a fantastic job with this side and has seemingly finally unlocked Joshua Zirkzee in a top 5 league. Yes, Zirkzee did well with Anderlecht in the 21-22 season, but last season with Bologna was forgettable for him. He's already almost doubled his goal contributions from last season. He has doubled his goals with 5 now, including some important contributions this month. He assisted Lewis Ferguson in their 1-0 win over Lazio, but also scored in their 2-0 win over Torino. Bologna have lost just twice this season, in that match against Fiorentina this past month and at the beginning of the season against AC Milan. And what does that mean as far as their place in the table? They are in that range right now where, depending on results, a win can put them in the top 4. Inter with that 2-point lead over Juve. AC Milan, considering they have had a tough season, still not exactly out of it, just 6 points off the top. Salernitana still stinks in the basement with Cagliari, Hellas Verona, Empoli, and Udinese all similarly smelly. Lautaro still has a massive lead as the top scorer with old man Giroud and Domenico Berardi both on 7 behind the Argentinian. Thuram still leads the way in the assist column, but Dybala is slowly catching up to the guy. Watch out for Tolian as well. He's lurking. Clean sheets. Look at Jan Sommer. What a guy on 9 already. And we are how many games into the season? Just 14 matches in at this point. He's followed by Szczesny, of course, Skorupski of Bologna, Provedel from Lazio, etc. First stop, Bournemouth. Yes, Iraola is showing why he was such a sought-after manager about a year ago, as things are shaping up quite nicely for Bournemouth. Their November started with a 2-1 loss to Liverpool in the League Cup, followed by an absolute slapping from Man City in the league. But after that, they won 2 matches against Newcastle United and Sheffield United, and their current form sees them get 10 points from a possible 15 of late. I'm glad they didn't sack Iraola early in the season, especially since they didn't win a single game until October 28th. They have some winnable matches coming: Palace, Man United, and then Luton, Nottingham Forest, and Fulham. So Bournemouth is a team to keep an eye on at the moment in England. They could get a little bit hot, go on a little run here. Liverpool, since we just mentioned them, are in some hot form at the moment. In fact, the best form in the Premier League as things stand, as they haven't lost since the end of September, which was that loss to Tottenham with Diaz's goal getting ruled out for absolutely no reason, etc. Liverpool had a mixed month overall, but the one loss they had isn't really applicable to this series, as that was in the Europa League. But domestically, they had 3 wins and 2 draws, 1 draw coming against Man City, while the other was in a poor performance against Luton, in which they just couldn't break them down for the life of them. One thing that has been a major positive for Liverpool recently has been the form of Trent Alexander-Arnold, of which I will be doing a video on him this week, so I won't go into too much detail, but his positional change has allowed him to be involved and dictate the play far more, and he's looked all the better because of it. Speaking of which, by the way, Virgil van Dijk is back to close to his best, maybe even back to his best, but without all of the hysteria or hype surrounding him. Clean as hell in defense and making those accusers of him being past it go real quiet these days. But it's still very noisy at Manchester United though, isn't it? Noisy as hell, as they were ousted from the League Cup to start things off, losing 3-0 to Newcastle. Then they beat Fulham 1-0, beat Luton 1-0, beat Everton 3-0, and that was that domestically. In big trouble in the Champions League, Rashford is really out of form and has major questions being asked of him, etc., etc. We've spoken about United at length here, though, through our various series on the channel, so we'll leave it at that with them. United face Chelsea next, and it's safe to say that Chelsea has begun turning their form around. They beat Blackburn in the League Cup, shock, had that incredibly strange win over Tottenham where the score was inflated right at the end of the match because Ange Postecoglou refused to have his team sit back despite them being down 2 men. Then a draw with Man City and a bad loss to Newcastle United. It looks as though Poch is out on the other side of that, really difficult run of matches from the end of October through November. Unscathed. Well, not unscathed, relatively unscathed. But while November was a big month for Pochettino's Chelsea as far as surviving that run of matches, in December, it's another big month as well, as there are very winnable games in there, matches they should win, and failure to do so at this point will be a much worse indictment than an out-of-sorts Chelsea losing to some of the top clubs in the league. Oh, and Raheem Sterling. He's been great lately. Give that man some love. He's so harshly criticized. I feel like with every team I speak of, there's always a, but they lost to Newcastle in there. Newcastle have been claiming some major scalps this season, and Arsenal was also a victim at the beginning of the month. But after that, they won every single game across all competitions, grabbing 3 clean sheets along the way and scoring numerous goals. Domestically, they also crashed out of the League Cup with a loss to West Ham. That came before their loss to Newcastle. So their bounce back ability is high. Gabriel Jesus is back from his injury, not a long layoff this time, thankfully for them, and their attack looks all the better for it as they are the league leaders now. Across North London, Tottenham have hit their worst patch yet under Ange Postecoglou, and much of it stems from that 4-1 loss to Chelsea, where not only did they lose for the first time, but they lost Romero and Udogie to suspension, Van de Ven to injury, and suddenly they were playing with a center-back pairing of Eric Dyer and Ben Davies. So, not ideal, and helps to illustrate what Postecoglou already knew about this team. They were a center-back short even in the summer. So that's got to be top priority in January. But yeah, after going unbeaten in the league for 10 matches, the Chelsea match derailed them a bit, losing 3 in a row to close out November. Not good. However, they did bounce back in December with a lovely draw against Manchester City, who won 1 match this November domestically, the massive 6-1 beatdown of Bournemouth, and drew the rest. As Bernardo Silva spoke of recently in their match against Tottenham, they have this new habit of giving up goals in the late stages of matches, as they did against Liverpool from a winning position, as they did against Chelsea from a winning position, and most recently against Tottenham. But that was in December, so stop talking about it, Adrian. So it's been a bit of a strange month for Man City by their own very high standards, but anyone who has followed this league knows that with Guardiola's Manchester City, the season only begins in about January for them. All of this is just foreplay, and then they go on a crazy run. Newcastle United, we've mentioned them quite a few times in this section, so let's actually talk about them. Not only are they doing well in the difficult Champions League group that they have, and could still progress to the round of 16 upon their return to the competition, but they are once again vying for the top 4 in the league. They had that slip up against Bournemouth we mentioned, but aside from that, they defeated Man United, Arsenal, and Chelsea in domestic competitions. That is not a bad victims list for Newcastle, and they have a chance to do it again against Chelsea in the League Cup later in December as well. Anthony Gordon has really emerged as a great player for Newcastle as he leads the team in goal contributions with 6 goals and 5 assists across all competitions. How many times can I say that? Isak is still their top scorer with 9 goals and 15 appearances. Where? Across all competitions. And the last team we'll chat about is Aston Villa. Unai has put in some incredible work with this side in order to take the decent amount of funds that are available to him through their ownership and then translate that into a competitive side that is currently ahead of the likes of Newcastle, Man United, Tottenham, Chelsea, etc. So they're flying. Of all the clubs to lose against in November, they fell to Nottingham Forest, but defeated Fulham and Tottenham before drawing Bournemouth. One thing I will say, not to rain on their parade, but their schedule is going to get very difficult soon as they face some top opposition. The best team they faced in the Premier League this season was Liverpool, of which they lost. Then Newcastle, of which they were smashed 5-1. We'll get to see what they're made of though, as they will play Man City at home on Wednesday, then Arsenal at home on the weekend, before they take on another in-form side in Brentford. But as I said, looking at the table here, Villa is still in 4th place, only 4 points off at the top. Chelsea are finally in the top 10 now, just behind West Ham and Brighton. The top scorer in the league is still Erling Haaland, as he scored 3 goals this month in the Premier League and picked up a couple of assists to boot. Speaking of assists, Trippier has caught up to Pedro Neto now, and he's great value for that. Trippier has been brilliant at Newcastle under Howe. 7 assists for him. And clean sheets. Onana, Pope, and Johnston are all on 5. Onana making great strides there, picking up 3 clean sheets in the Premier League, as his Premier League form belies his shaky Champions League form, where he is kind of unrecognizable at times. I mean, chucking the ball in his own goal. Silly boy. Now remember folks, for this section, we do consider all competitions including the continental competitions. And I can tell you for a fact that given how he only played a few matches this month, Jude Bellingham will not be defending his title. So who do you go with for this great award? Perhaps Antoine Griezmann, who continues to be an absolute warrior for Atletico. Maybe Harry Kane, who scored 8 goals and 5 appearances for Bayern in November. That's pretty good. Maybe he'll take it. Well, I promise you that Harry Kane will get that award sometime if he keeps it up. But he was beaten to it again by Rodrigo. Yes, another Real Madrid player. Let the conspiracy theories begin. But hey man, ball doesn't lie, and Rodrigo has been playing some sublime stuff recently in Vinicius Jr.'s absence. 6 goals and 4 assists in 15 LaLiga appearances, 3 goals and 1 assist in 5 Champions League performances. As mentioned earlier, an incredible 7 goals and 4 assists in just 5 appearances in November. That's 11 goal contributions to Kane's 8. He put in man of the match performances against Valencia and Cadiz. He rallied the troops when Real went down a goal against Napoli early and immediately sparked the turnaround with a great strike. Difficult to look past Rodrigo after he was on fire this month. So he is the second winner. But who's your pick for player of the month in November? Do let me know, as well as any other thoughts you may have with the landscape and how it's changed or stayed the same in the past month. Beyond that, I appreciate you watching this incredibly long video, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.